So, good to tell you guys about UnityHealthScore today. UnityHealthScore is a decentralized, you can't hear? UnityHealthScore is a decentralized data brokerage. So, if you were here for my last presentation, you got my crash course in, you don't own your data, even your medical information, businesses sell that about you, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about it besides maybe mess around with my startup or a few others. So, what we're doing is we're starting with medical data because the use case is very clear. With HIPAA regulations, certain laws that consider that information belonging to you, the use case with medical data is clear, so that's where we're starting. We want to expand into all other forms of data. So when I presented about 6 months ago, I had a few team members, no partnerships, some big ideas, but not a very clear path on how to get there. In the past 6 months, I've acquired some really great team members. We've got a chief technical officer, 40 years experience as a senior software architect, finance officer with an MBA, chief data scientist with a PhD in mathematics. I won't talk too much about that, but I do want to tell y'all. Did I turn this on? Yeah. No?
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Gotta get the problem. Okay. So let's talk about the problem right now with health information, who's owning it, how it's impacting the market, how it's being used. We've got this huge issue right now called interoperability. People have been trying to solve it since roughly the digital age entered medicine and medical records. Information is siloed. People can't own it. It's very hard for you to have control of your information. And so just to give you an idea, two of the biggest electronic health record vendors out right now are Epic Systems and Cerner. Now there's a huge issue where if you're from a demographic that mostly has Cerner and you're traveling or even across town that the next facility you're going to has Epic, they're not going to accept your records because Cerner doesn't want their data on Epic systems. Epic doesn't want their data on Cerner systems. They consider it their proprietary, not yours. There's also issues in privacy. Your privacy is not respected. My grandmother has dementia, so this matters a lot to me. People buy data about her because she has dementia for marketing because they know that she's an easy target. I can send you a lot of papers if you want to read about this. There's way more grotesque practices than that. And risk modeling, you're not involved in risk modeling. You have no say in really how high your insurance premiums are. They're looking at data about you. They're trying to anticipate your costs. And it's a huge window for error. It lacks transparency. You're not able to engage with your risk modeling. You're not able to communicate with what your risks are. You're not able to effectively mitigate the risk other than costs. So we've talked about privacy, transparency, and interoperability. If you could move me on to the next slide, please. I'm so sorry this clicker's not working. Let's talk about the solution. The solution is to decentralize and distribute the information. Now, it's a lot easier said than done, and the key component here is mass adoption. So what we're wanting to do, UnityHealthScore originally was we wanted to be a multifunctional personal health record platform. Very hard to do as a startup, but I don't know if I got really lucky or I'm persuasive or what it is, but we partnered up with a company called MyHealth. They're a startup out of Boca Raton, Florida, started a few years ago. And we're currently putting their back-end technology on our front end. And what this does is it allows you to aggregate any and all medical information, get a valuation on how valuable it is, and you see a profile to show you what information about you is out there being sold, what percentage of that you have on your own profile. So our whole goal here is to create a system where instead of information being siloed in multiple different areas, it's all on you and it can be sent out from there. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So our primary revenue stream is data transaction. Whenever we sell data, UnityHealthScore takes a percentage, but of course, you as a person, you get the main payout. You get 50% of the data revenue, and we intend to scale your amount up after we reach more clients, after we have a large amount of the US population using our personal health record platform. MyHealth is one of the only not only health record platforms, but tech platforms that will never sell your data. When you consent with UnityHealthScore, they'll sell your data. My Health will never do that. They're a very honorable company that wants to consider your data your property. We also partnered up with BetterPath. They've been around since 2012. They have millions of dollars in software and patents, mostly for being able to organize data taxonomy. So that data's unorganized, they want to take medical data and complex information and organize it in a way that artificial intelligence and machine learning can understand it. We have secondary revenue streams. We have a study participant client acquisition service for clinical trials. We want to do advertising, some secondary forms of revenue, but our main one is data transaction. And the average person's annual medical data is around $1,000 a year. Some people are over 10,000, some people are in the hundreds, depends on how much information about you is out there, but we want to help you capture that. And the cool thing about our model is, even our competition, I can't remember exactly how to pronounce it. I say Equivia. I've heard other people say different things. IQVIA is the largest medical data broker in the world. They'd be considered our greatest competition, but what we want to do is make their cold data warm. We want to make their data interactive. So when research buys their data, they can say, hey, send this data point a request to get this diagnostic done, and we'll pay them this much. Send them this survey. We can make their data interactive. And our model is already clear with BetterPath and My Health. If you look at My Health's website, you look at UnityHealthScore's website before we've started to kind of partner, you'd think we're very similar, and how could these companies ever work together? How could me, a young entrepreneur, convince somebody who was an investment banker for the majority of his career and has been in business for a long time to want to partner? Because our model allows for competition to be partners. BetterPath as well. So we turn cold data into warm data. Community empowerment. So one of the reasons we have really high-priced medications right now is because companies can go, all right, we don't have to involve people, let's get their data. Okay, we've got the product made. Now, how much should we charge for it? And they can actually look at financial data and they can model and they can go, okay, well, if we make it affordable to everyone, we'll make this much money. But if we charge this much for it, well, poor people don't want to sell it to them. We're just middle, high-income earners, and we'll make a lot more money. And that's what's happening right now with a lot of different types of medication. I mean, there's a huge lack of transparency. They can go directly around you, obtain your information, and manipulate it to make really high medication costs, raise up your insurance premiums. I mean, things like the size of your house or your browsing history can impact your insurance premiums. And those are, of course, more loosely drawn correlations, but it is taken into account with the health scoring service. There's a really good ProPublica article published in 2018 about health scores. A lot of people looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, you have a health score if you have private insurance. They're like, well, you know what you're talking about. No, if you have private insurance, you have a health score. You just aren't involved. But the global medical data market is projected at $68 billion by 2025. It's about $20 billion right now. I discussed how much people are worth in data transactions, but let's talk about data is ownership. Data is an asset, okay? If you don't own real estate, if you don't have a financial portfolio, data is the largest financial asset you could own. So, I really loved Carson's presentation earlier and about how he's helping kids and schools that aren't performing well. These kids are going up into a world where they're predicting that a large percentage of the workforce will be taken over by automation, where more artificial intelligence programs will dictate their lives, will impact their lives. And then being able to own their data is essential for humanity in the coming years. I don't know if anybody's heard any of the scare or heard of the investment from people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking for creating artificial intelligence safeguards. There is no better artificial intelligence safeguard than to consider data human property. There's a legal front being fought. There's a really cool company called Humanity. They started the hashtag My31 movement to create data ownership as a human right. And legality is great, but we can't just say, hey, big business, hey, business, you got to play nice, you got to consider data people's property. We intend to not only pursue this at a legal front, but also a better business. Because when you're taking data directly from the source, It's more credible. You can ask questions to it. You can author, or you can authenticate it. You can know if it's quality data versus just having to hope the bulk data you bought that what you want out of it is correct in there, because there's oftentimes medical records are wrong, and people being left out of the situation is just it's a huge lack of transparency, huge lack of privacy. It's a really big issue. So imagine if companies were involved in using your data, right? Do you think that they might be a little bit more wanting to save face with how much they charge for medications? Do you think that if companies had to go through to get your data, that they might want to compete a little bit more for fair practices, fair pricing, being transparent? If we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. Now, who wants to be a data broker? Who wants to empower their community with data autonomy? Anybody can be a data broker on our platform. Anyone can go out and say, hey, you should own your data. Let's use this platform that promises to never sell it. Let's put your medical information on it. And this isn't just a platform to hold your medical information. We can actually increase hospital and medical practice admission rates by 80%, because you're not walking in there and jumbling around with your papers and hoping that you're going to get in there quick and the wait time's not going to be too long. You walk in there, you show them a QR code. Your entire medical record on a QR code you can carry around in your wallet. Back to, before digital medicine, when you had to carry your papers on you, it's that, you have your QR code. Other businesses have tried to do the QR code, and people are somewhat skeptical of it. We argue that with a level of wellness and data ownership will make the QR code system work. What I really want to see is not the continuous big people in tech and people at conferences talking about this. I want you to look at your kids, your family. When you see them, think about how the use of data is going to impact them as they get older, and you have your kids grow up, you have grandkids. It's only going to get worse. And people kind of laugh, when folks like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Stephen Hawking talk about the dangers of AI. It's already here. It's already impacting your insurance premiums. You're not involved at all. These platforms, what they do is they predict how much you're going to cost in a year based off of information about you. And imagine the person who's telling their doctor, hey, I'm dieting exercise, I'm trying to lose weight. And the doctor's like, yeah, maybe you're not. And a couple years later, they found out you have a thyroid issue. This is the lack of transparency that exists in risk modeling, and why data ownership, data autonomy must be taken seriously. So if we ever want to have safeguards for artificial intelligence to keep humanity and to allow us to keep technology in check, we're going to have to implement some form of this. Maybe not data ownership entirely, maybe some form of a system of checks and balances that at least involves people, but there does have to be some progression towards we need to care about our data. Will.i.am, the rapper entrepreneur of Black Eyed Peas, he just a few days ago did an interview with Economist magazine. And George Matthew, Chief Medical Officer of DXC Technology, formerly Hewlett Packard, he tagged me and a bunch of other people in there. George is a really great guy. He's like a mentor to me. He's helped me so much, get me out at different conferences like Distributed Health to speak about this. So what I really want to see is people to start caring a little bit more. And it doesn't just start here. There's a platform called FutureNet. It's like Facebook, but they pay you for your data. So if you use FutureNet over Facebook, they're going to pay you for your data. You're going to know how your data is being used. Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, they're trying to acquire your medical information. I don't know if you know that. Go look it up. If you watch the hearing with him in the Senate from the data hack, he bounced around questions. He made it sound like all he does is advertising. No, Facebook sells a lot of data. And it's not inherently wrong, but the fact that people aren't involved and aren't informed and are left out of the equation can leave a big window for error in terms of not just the cost of medications or how expensive insurance is and how they do their price modeling with risk modeling. There's a number of issues that are going to transcend, and if humanity ever wants to keep our hold in the growing evolution of technology, we're going to have to be able to say, hey, I don't like how this system is impacting my life, take my data off that system. When people can collectively do that, we can collectively control technology and how it impacts society. So, y'all, I think that I've about covered all the bases. Might be a few things I've left out. I really wish that I had more than 5-6 minutes to talk about this. There's a lot to this. But does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
So with the big healthcare systems, Cerner, your McKesson, Epic, et cetera, how are you safeguarding or buffering yourself from, when they get a hack or somebody gets into your EHR records? The fines are pretty massive, so what are you doing to safeguard your hub or wherever you're storing the data?
We're using Ethereum blockchain, which has a high level of encryption, and this technology, we're not doing a cryptocurrency, we're not messing with any of that, any of those buzzwords. Blockchain can provide utility in terms of encryption and decentralizing and distributing who can own information. So we're using blockchain to distribute decentralized information and have a high tier of encryption on it. Yes, sir.
Just briefly, maybe you've already done this, but in terms of a concept of the supply chain of your data, what are the cost drivers? I'm just curious, if you pay for the data from a middleman, or do they pay the healthcare systems for the data? You know, what are the costs involved?
So as far as we go, we're transaction-based. So we will house and broker data and then take a transaction when we sell it. How it currently works is a number of different ways depending on what the organization is. Let's talk about the biggest broker, Equivia. What they do is they partner up with various organizations and they say, hey, you know, send us your data, and they do a similar model. It really depends on what the data is being used for, by who. Some people do contracts to where for a year they get all the data from one direct source. Sometimes they send in forms that say, give us this data, and then they send them back a bulk amount. Cost-wise, what exactly, I don't think I very clearly understand.
Well, that your materials, your resources that you're selling, do you pay for them? And if so... the PHR platform that doesn't sell your data that you can use... You're populating that data from a stream of suppliers, if you will?
Yeah, so we're populating the data on MyHealth's interoperable personal health record platform. It's on a QR code. You can get it on a wallet tag, you can get it on a hard hat sticker. They've already got some construction companies doing the hard hat stickers, shoe tags, a lot of different ways just to have something that has a QR code on it for you. So we've actually been able to minimize a lot of our costs because they're our back end. What we're looking at right now is roughly $500,000 to get everything developed onto the blockchain. Until then, we're going to be using a cloud service, but we're not anticipating to be going national or really out of state. Until then, we're going to keep things small, and as we scale and develop our backend and develop our Ethereum blockchain, it would be about $500,000. At that point, we'll release that. We'll leave the cloud. If that is that what you were asking?
So this is claims data?
Claims data is one. We want to partner with insurance companies, and that's where we strategize to lower premiums. So insurance companies do sell claims data, but claims data doesn't have all the stuff they want. The HealthScore system, once they give the claims data to HealthScores, and then they go and find out a bunch of information and come back to you. Insurance will sell claims data, but what we want to do is we want to say, hey, insurance, how's your claims data with us? And then we'll send you requests for diagnostics and testing. We authenticate that. We'll give you a payout back when that test produces data and we sell it. So they can send us the claims data and authorize testing, and we'll pay them for that.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So where is your platform at this point, and I guess your launch and all that kind of?
So we're looking at maybe late spring, early summer. What we're doing right now is we're taking the UnityHealthScore prototype, which is currently on the Google Play Store. We're stripping away most of the features, and we're putting MyHealth's back end onto that so that we're able to feed data to MyHealth's platform. And we're going to be adding our own features on there as well. MyHealth is a wellness service for individuals and employers in emergency situations. We want to be a financial wellness service on top of that, with data as an asset. Yes, sir.
Earlier you quoted $1,000 a year in terms of valuation for patients' data. How do you arrive at that estimate?
Yeah, so data is actually very subjective, and it depends on how much data you have out there that is, determines its value. But some people can go do a clinical trial on their microbiome, the gut bacteria, and that alone is over $10,000. Some people. Some people, anybody can do this. Anybody can use DNA Simple. They send you a kit, you spit in it, send it back, and then every time they sell part of that sample, you get about $30 to $50. From clinical trials, from analytics, from the various parts of the market that uses your health data. So, like I said, some people are worth in the hundreds if they have a little bit of data out there. Some people that have a lot or have rare data will be in the thousands, tens of thousands. We're estimating at roughly 1,000 is a safe figure to say that the average person is worth with a full, complete medical record. 1,000 is actually under. If you look up, how much medical records are being sold for, they're often over thousands of dollars, and 1,000 is a safe bet for us to say once you create a full, complete medical data profile, we can generate you at least 1,000 a year.
Well, that would suggest that if that were true, that would suggest that the medical data for all Americans is worth $3 billion a year.
Yeah, it's projected to be a $68 billion industry. But not everybody has data out there. That's part of the thing. Not everybody has medical data floating around. Out of what medical data is floating around and what percentage of citizens are selling medical data, the U.S. medical data market is a little over $10 billion right now. So, when you take into account, we have 300 million people, and I couldn't tell you the exact percentage of people that have medical data floating around that don't, but is there anything else?
I don't understand how you arrived at that estimate. The medical data industry at a size larger than all of residential construction. Seems a little bit off.
Well, data is the world's most valuable resource, so. Yes, it is.
Data is the new oil.
It is the 21st century gold and oil rush. Might want to Google that. Yes, sir.
So what is the advantage of the health system to work with you or to share that interoperability side? If I've got a accountable care organization or patient-centered medical home where as a doctor, I'm getting rated or reimbursed, but I'm keeping your costs down per year.
So a number of ways there, depends on the organization. If we're talking primary care, we want to increase the primary care relationship. We want to bring that back. We want to ask doctors, hey, it's not necessary, but if you want to be involved, if you want to help scribe the data, if you want to validate it, we'll give you a small commission on its sales. There's multiple parties involved in producing data, and if we were to partner with Epic or Cerner, we're going to give them a payout when we sell their data. But to better answer your question, where we provide value is we provide value between the doctor and the patient because they're engaging on their information, they're being involved in the electronic health record service, whereas right now, doctors are not involving people. The Epic Systems has developed a patient portal, and it's only available in some cities. And people not being involved, how can you expect someone to commit to being healthy when you don't even involve them in their medical records? And when they ask to see it, you're like, here's a copy and there's code on it. There's people who are asking for copies of their records and they're getting code.
Well, I used to sell, so I'm pretty familiar. So you got your CCR, which in the other side of things, you're kind of doing a care record, which you can say, hey, I want my records. They can't export it to a PDF, so I'm trying to understand why. First, I would say the hospital systems are great, but on a local scale, what about the private practices? Are you guys going after that?
Yeah, we definitely are. We want people to engage with their primary care on this platform and have the primary care authenticate. So we have health diaries and things like that, and we would like doctors to at least kind of review it and check mark off on it, say this data is correct. As a level of authentication and to prove that the data is viable and accurate. My grandmother has dementia, and I've been a caregiver for a while. I know that we've had issues in one hospital where she talks to different specialists, and they're like, okay, well, we have to wait until we have this passcode to access this information because of HIPAA. But if she's got a QR code right there on her desk, I mean, doctors can come in and out all day and just scan it. I know there was one